Power scaling, it's a very interesting subject when talking about it. You put two characters against each other from the same universe or two completely different ones, and then you have them fight to the death. And the outcome of the fight usually determines on how you present it. And usually how you present it is with feats and statements and facts from either the same universe where these two fighters come from or their individual universes respectively. Whoever has the greater feats or greater power in general will usually win the fight. Some examples would be Superman versus Goku, Broly versus Jiren, Naruto versus Ichigo. You can really put two characters from any verse and put them up against each other to get a pretty awesome fight out of it. And whatever your answer may be from this outcome will most likely make the comment section of any place where you put this opinion angry. Looks at YouTube comments after video. But we're not power scaling in this video. Well, yet. And even if then, it's very brief and very not descriptive at all. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, a series I love dearly. What's not to love? The characters, the plot, the power system, the overall kind of aesthetic each part has. What can you not like about the series? I can find one. Fights aren't consistent at all. Let me clarify. They are consistent in its own universe, but once you bring characters out of their own part, or out of their own verse and put them up against another character from a different verse, stuff gets kind of confusing. And that's because, well, JoJo's power system isn't really built on power. Surprising. Compared to other verses, well, you can clearly determine a winner when putting up characters against each other. Because, you know, since I can punch a black hole and you can't, I'm clearly stronger, right? Well, in JoJo's, it's a bit different. Instead of being stronger than your opponent, most of the time, I'll clarify that very soon, you usually outsmart your opponent, figuring out what their stand ability is and how to counter it with the stuff in your environment. To go in greater detail, here's an example. Silver Chariot, a stand that can rival Star Platinum in speed and in power to a degree, versus Ebony Devil, a stand that can control a puppet. Okay, it seems pretty obvious on the basic surface level, but no, surprisingly enough, Ebony Devil actually gave Silver Chariot and Polnareff a run for his money. By putting Polnareff in a corner where he couldn't use his stand ability very effectively, he was able to put Polnareff on a run for his own money. A significantly weaker stand was able to fight against a more powerful stand by just kind of outsmarting him just a little bit. And this isn't the only example, there's a lot more. The Man in the Mirror fight, Abakio, a stand user with a stand that isn't really fighting oriented, but was able to actually put Man in the Mirror's user on a run for his own money. Yet again, Jotaro versus Dio. Jotaro had to play the long game until he figured out how the world worked and beat Dio. Johnny versus Diego, etc., etc. There are a lot of examples, and to be totally honest, every example in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is an example of, well, it's not power that wins you the fight, it's your brain that wins you the fight. And people tend to forget this fact. Like, I've seen a lot of versus battles between, I don't know, example, let's go Josuke versus Giorno. Everybody says Giorno wins because his stand ability is stronger, but that's really not the case people should honestly go with. Giorno is actually, and in canon, a complete noob with GER. He barely knows how to use it, and during the babyface fight, which is also a great example of outsmarting your opponent, he barely learns that he can actually make body parts with his stand. And on the other hand, Josuke can actually use his stand very creatively and very effectively. He turned an entire battle onto his side by using a piece of glass against Kira. So there is a clear and massive difference between, you know, intelligence in this fight. And plus, Josuke has had his stand for a lot longer and probably could use that in his own advantage against Giorno. You see what I'm getting at here? Power scaling in its most raw form of feats and strengths just kind of goes out the door with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Instead, we should be using a different type of power scaling, which I like to call strategy scaling. It's not that much different from power scaling, but instead of using feats of strength, you use feats of intelligence with a bit of power scaling thrown in there just to kind of clear up some kind of voids in power. Note, this isn't a new thing. People have been doing this for years, kind of scaling people's own intelligence. You know, Seth the Programmer's video on Batman vs. Kira is a great example of this, or any Naruto fight ever. Intelligence is always a factor in fights, but in JoJo's, it's more of a factor. If I were to give a percentage on it, it's like 70% kind of figuring out how these characters work and how their brain function kind of works during a fight, and like 30% on their actual raw power. Results may vary depending on what stand you use against another stand. And when it comes to JoJo characters fighting different characters from other universes, I think you should also keep this in mind. JoJo characters are built around the fact of outsmarting your opponent, not beating the ever-living shit out of them, except probably for Jotaro. And this is the part of the video where I contradict myself entirely. Power scaling does work, but only for like 10 stands in the entire series. These 10 stands are so ridiculously busted they basically can defeat almost every other stand, and they only have problems when they have to fight each other. They're so powerful in fact that I can actually put them on a list together. At number 9, King Crimson. The only reason why he's at the bottom here, and I will explain, is that he does not have the speed feats or the destructive capability feats. Not much is known about King Crimson's actual stand stats, which is also another fishy subject to talk about, but in terms of this kind of fight, we will kind of use it to a small degree. Not much is known about him at all, actually, and Diavolo, to be totally honest. The only thing going for him is Epitaph and Time Skip. That's about it. All the other characters on this list are either way stronger than him or have some pretty good durability, making King Crimson actually pretty useless in a one-on-one scenario. Next would be Star Platinum. What do I have to say? Punchy boy extremist, super durable. Jotaro is actually half capable with his stand. Also, he can tank apparently small explosions to the face and still be able to use a time stop, apparently. Also, not to mention, this is part 3 Jotaro we're talking about here, with a bit of part 4 in there. The only reason why Jotaro would beat King Crimson is because, well, he's just a little bit more durable than, well, Diavolo is. And Jotaro Star Platinum probably does actually punch harder than King Crimson. Next would be the World, and this one's kind of self-obvious. It's the same thing as Star Platinum, but Dio's a vampire and has a longer time stop, and plus, vampiric abilities as well. You might say that due to Dio's vampiric abilities, he should be placed higher, but you have to remember from this point onward, every stand user and stand from this point does a ridiculous and stupid amount of damage to their opponent, basically having the ability to one-shot. Next would be Made in Heaven, a very underrated stand that I actually kind of want to go more in depth about, so I'll save that video for later, but Made in Heaven has the ability to go at ridiculously high speeds, steal your stand, and use gravity to rip your skin off of your own body. So yeah, Made in Heaven's ridiculously fucking powerful. Also, not to mention, Made in Heaven has the ability to affect time, so that means the World's time stops abilities would be actually shortened, plus probably even Diavolo to a certain degree. Next is Actually Tied, D4C and Wonder Review. Originally, this video was actually supposed to be that, a Wonder Review versus D4C love train, but eventually I kind of said to myself, well, I'm going to go into a bit of strategy scaling with that video, so I might as well just make a power scaling video overall for JoJo's in general. So that's what I did. I don't want to go too in depth with these because they're kind of slightly complicated, but to keep it very simple, one has the ability to make all damage just kind of go away from him to random locations to the world, that being Love Train, and Wonder Review has the ability to make bad luck and multiply damage to you onto you for chasing Wonder Review significantly. Next would be Tusk Act 4 and its infinite rotation ability. To keep it brief, it has the ability to stop D4C's reflection ability, and is also hinted to also reflect the calamity ability of Wonder Review. Plus, the infinite rotation is so powerful it has the ability to track you down to other universes to finish you off. That's ridiculously busted. And at number 1 would be GER. I don't really have to explain it because Perfect Zero can cancel out any ability from ever happening. But that's only 9, you say. Well, actually, there are 2 non-canon ones I don't really like to talk about too often, but I know someone's gonna mention it, so I might as well here. The Over Heavens, that being the World Over Heaven and Star Platinum Over Heaven. They're basically super powerful reality warpers, meaning that they can really defeat any stand in the entire series if they so choose. So, yeah. They're extremely busted. Yes, I know I glossed over probably a lot of facts everybody's putting in the comment section below, but let me tell you, I don't want to edit a 20-minute segment in a video where I'm going to actually contradict myself in about a few seconds here. The only time these stands have a problem fighting is with themselves. Sure, Tusk might have an overpowered ability with him, but shouldn't Made in Heaven be powerful enough due to his speed and his other abilities to beat Tusk? Or shouldn't Epitaph have some type of advantage over the world? You see what I'm getting at here? It's the smaller details that keep on screwing with things. Or, what you could say is, don't power scale in JoJo, strategy scale in JoJo. It's way better to determine a fight by a character's intelligence rather than their powers, and it even goes for the top tiers in the verse. Like, sure, you can make an accurate list, quote unquote, but there are some small and big holes within that list. Large contradictory statements is what I like to call it. From this point onward, when I make versus battles within JoJo, I think I'm more or less going to focus on kind of the intellect of the character or how the stand works, rather than this person is much more powerful, so he should be able to beat that other person, when there's clear facts out there that the other person could possibly win due to their genius. Yeah, I think I got my point across, I hope. If you have any questions on anything in this video, put in the comments below and I will answer back to you. Well, I'll try to, because I'm most likely assuming there will be a lot. Well, that's the end of the video. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, stay hydrated. See you in the next one, ladies and gentlemen.